Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Star Wars Outlaws video. Today we have some brand new gameplay to go over. A bunch of content creators got to go to an event in LA to actually play the game for quite a few hours. And the general consensus from what I can see is it's a lot of fun. Now that's to say it doesn't have its flaws, but this game actually really does look promising. Especially because it's not every day that we get a new Star Wars game, let alone an open world set in the Star Wars universe. Gameplay from the ship, the speeder, on-ground combat, stealth, everything here looks really promising. And just more proving my point that IGN footage, that 10 minutes of gameplay we got, probably old footage. Either that or someone at Ubisoft screwed up by giving IGN that footage. It left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, which is fair enough. But like I said, it was just a bad representation of the game, and this gameplay confirms that because this looks awesome. This looks like a lot of fun. I know a lot of people have their qualms with this game. They want to make their own character. They don't want to play as Kay. It's an Ubisoft game, so there's a bit of like tension there. No one knows whether to trust it or not. But one thing that jumps out immediately for me when it comes to this game, and especially in this new gameplay, is the era it's set in between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. It's not really an era we get to see that often. We usually get in between episode 3 and 4 or episode 6 and 7. Sometimes we get a few tidbits in between, you know, episodes 4 and 5. But besides the comics, I can't really think of anything that's really set between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Let me know in the comments if there is, but this really interests me about the game because we've got two things here that we don't usually get. We've got the criminal underworld of Star Wars, which is something that not a lot of things concentrate on. The only big thing that I can think of in recent times that's concentrated on this is the Solo movie. And the other thing is it's a game that's set in the original trilogy with the Empire at the height of its power. Obviously we've had Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor, which are set in the original trilogy, but they concentrate more on Order 66, the Jedi, the Inquisitors, basically the Force side of Star Wars. This is way more grounded, and you really feel like that the Empire are a major threat to you, which I don't think you really understand in Jedi Fallen Order or Jedi Survivor, because you're a Jedi wielding a lightsaber, you got Force powers, you take down stormtroopers like nothing. The thing that threatens you in those games is the Inquisitors, is other Force users, or people that are specifically trained to hunt down Jedi. Whereas this one, there's so many threats. You've got all the syndicates, like the Pikes, the Hutt Cartel, the Crimson Dawn, the Ashiga Clan, which is a brand new faction for this game, and you'll find them on Kijimi. They have a heavy presence there, as well as other planets, of course, but Kijimi in particular is basically their stronghold, heavily influenced by the planet itself. These guys look really cool. I feel like they've got a bit of an honor system going on with these guys, whereas other factions are a bit more scummy, more inclined to screw you over, like the Hutts or the Pikes. And because it's set in this era and set in this setting where we're concentrating on the underworld, we get to experience characters we don't usually get to experience, one of which I'm really interested in, which is Lady Kira in the Crimson Dawn. Some of you might remember this character from Solo, a Star Wars story. She was sort of Han's main love interest, but she also had some dark dealings in the background, screwing people over, in particular her main boss in Crimson Dawn. And then the big reveal of that movie, spoiler if you haven't watched it, was that she spoke to Darth Maul, and Darth Maul was behind all the syndicates and stuff, which we sort of already knew from other things, but it was cool to see Lady Kira actually interact with Darth Maul in that movie. Now obviously Darth Maul is dead at this point. The spoilers again if you haven't seen Rebels, but he dies on Tatooine just before episode 4. But what I want to know is, what is Lady Kira up to? I think some of the comics speak about this, but I'm very interested to see where she's at, because if you've just seen Solo, she kind of just disappeared. She was told to go to Dathomir, and then we saw nothing of her again. So she's one character in particular that I'm really excited to find more about, and I really want to see how the Imperial deals with the syndicates, whether they're making deals with them, whether they're trying to put them under their boot, maybe a bit of both. There's a real tug of war when it comes to the various powers in this game, and you feel that especially with the reputation system, with the decisions you make which can affect your reputation with a certain syndicate. You'll have to make choices that maybe will anger one faction but really please another, so you really have to think about what you're doing and the choices you make, which I think is a great angle to go for, especially for a relatively new character to us in particular, but she's also new to everything that's going going on in the criminal underworld of the larger Star Wars universe. We know that she has some backstory on Canto Bight. She's sort of like a street thief, but that's really all we know at this point. Everything else that she experiences after Canto Bight is all new to her, which I think is a great angle for us to learn more about the criminal underworld, because unless you're reading about it, you don't really get to experience it in the movies. So it's a perfect ground level for us, the player, to learn and experience the criminal underworld from her point of view. Now, obviously, a lot of people want to play as their own character. That's fine. Eventually, we will get a Star Wars open world RPG that does that, but this just isn't the one. They wanted to tell a particular story. Kay's at the center of that. I'm actually really interested in who she is and what she's up to and what the grander story is. I know that you're going to go on a big heist, so I'm really keen to see more of that. Now, in particular from this gameplay, we got to see some more stealth. We got to see a bit more of Tashara. In particular, I've been editing footage and videos for Bombastic, and he concentrated on the wanted system, so we got a good look at the death troopers and how much of a threat they are, and the Empire in general when you're wanted, how they bring in all these shuttles at once to land across the planet to hunt you down, and they'll obviously follow you into space as well depending on your wanted level. I'm really keen to see what max wanted level in space looks like, because we've seen TIE fighters and stuff, but could level 6 max wanted level be a Star Destroyer coming out of hyperspace to hunt you down in your Trailblazer ship? I think that'd be wicked. I'm not sure if that's going to be the case, but the wanted system looks really good. Again, perfect game to do this on. Focusing on the criminal underworld, you're obviously going to be wanted because you're committing crimes against the Empire, and you're working with various factions that the Empire might not like. So definitely keen to experience this myself when the game comes out on August 30th. And just the general feel of the game from all the footage we've seen so far makes you feel like you're immersed in the Star Wars world. I think everything feels authentic, and I think this will be a great game for those that just want to immerse themselves in the Star Wars world, just get fully invested in it and experience the Star Wars universe from a ground level for a change. It doesn't look like we'll be dealing with the grander events in the Star Wars universe at this time. We may or may not have some dealings with the Rebels. I highly doubt we'll have major dealings with them if we do. Obviously, there's been some X-Wings in the trailer and stuff, so I don't doubt that we'll see the Rebellion, because obviously they're a huge part of this time period. But for the most part, we're not going to get involved in the Galactic Civil War. We're not going to get involved with Jedi, Sith, none of that. The game devs have already said that they're not going to concentrate on that thing. Of course, the Force will sort of be there as a presence more than an actual story point. I'm sure there'll be people that we experience on planets that will have some kind of religion towards the Force or a different point of view of it, but it will be in no way a major plot point. So I'm keen for that. I'm keen for the ground level storytelling that we'll have. It's the reason I absolutely loved Andor, is because it had nothing to do with Jedi, nothing to do with Sith. It was just a ground level, gritty Star Wars story, and I'm hoping Star Wars Outlaws is that, but from the criminal underworld perspective rather than the Galactic Civil War perspective. Honestly, one thing as well that jumped out to me in the gameplay, which I wasn't expecting, is the speeder that Kay uses across all the planets and traversing the worlds. Actually looks like a lot of fun, and honestly looks like it feels like a speeder when you're riding it, if that makes sense. Whenever it comes to Star Wars vehicles, I think sometimes they're a bit hard to get right in terms of feeling, but it looks like Kay's speeder is a lot of fun and feels like a proper speeder bike. Especially when you get upgrades, you get boosts. There will be various open world activities for you to use the speeder for, like speeder races. And then of course the other major vehicle we'll get to use, which is integral to anything Star Wars, is your ship. The Trailblazer looks like a lot of fun to play in combat, in traversing space. We got to see some really cool space environments. I thought the sort of nebula storm that was going on around Kijimi was really cool. I'm very keen to see what other environments in space look like on different planets and around different planets. We know so far that we're going to go to 5 different planets. We're going to go to Akiva, Tashara, Tatooine, Kijimi, and Cantonica, which is where Canto Bight is. Of course, this game being a bit of an action-adventure open-world RPG, we're going to have platforming, we're going to have puzzle solving, and honestly, they don't look too bad. I'm not huge on puzzles in games like this. I didn't really dig the whole science puzzles in the Spider-Man games in particular, but from what I've heard, it doesn't really slow down the game too much, and you can get good at them pretty quickly. So even if this isn't your thing, I don't think it's going to really interrupt your gameplay if you just want to get back into the action of shooting stormtroopers or knocking them out or even attacking them with nicks. which is another gameplay feature which is really interesting to me. We sort of got a little bit of this with BD1 in Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order, but it looks like we can do a lot more with Nix. We can attack enemies, we can tell him to go pick up weapons, set traps, sabotage various things. And from what I've heard, stealth is a really big part of this game, so Nix will probably be integral to that, making sure that he can distract enemies, that he can disable alarms, things like that, and there'll be various ways for you to tackle certain scenarios. Now, the other side of this is obviously it is an Ubisoft open world game. It's probably going to have a lot of the same systems we've already seen. Sure, they might name it something different, but it's probably going to be a lot of the same stuff that we've seen in stuff like Far Cry or Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, which is obviously made by the exact same studio, Massive Entertainment. I don't doubt that some of the open world elements will feel a bit underwhelming, a bit chore-like almost. Perhaps some of the quests and stuff you do for reputation won't have as big of an impact as you might think. They're obviously going on about big choices and, you know, an enemy syndicate sending a hit squad after you if your reputation with them is too low. But I don't doubt that there's probably ways around that to where you can maybe not be friendly with every faction, but friendly with most and then neutral with others. Gameplay wise, this game just looks solid. Open world wise, it looks solid. Star Wars wise, it looks actually really good. And that's the main thing I want to focus on, is the feeling and the immersion, the storytelling. I want those things to be really good because that's what I want from my Star Wars in particular. As long as the gameplay is not terrible and the open world isn't a chore, then I think we have a really solid game on our hands. But is this game going to be like a contender for Game of the Year or anything like that? I don't think so. I don't think we're looking at anything mind-blowing here. A lot of the systems, a lot of the gameplay we're seeing is stuff we've seen in other games. All they have to do is make it good. Actually tweak it to where the gameplay, the open world, the missions actually feel fun and solid, so that the bits that will actually make this game stand out, which I think is the IP and the storytelling and the worlds, can properly stand out without stuff bagging it down, if that makes sense. The last thing you want in a game like this, where it's such a big IP, a lot of fans behind it, a lot of fans want it to be good, you don't want them complaining about things that you failed to just get right, to the point where they ignore the things that you did great on, like the immersion and getting the Star Wars universe feel and the open world feeling of you actually being involved in the Star Wars universe. So I'll be very interested to see what happens when this game actually comes out, what people's opinions are. Obviously, if this game doesn't look like your thing, you're not going to invest the time in it. You're not going to want to invest the price tag that's attached to it, which is quite significant. I know a lot of people don't have time for 7 or 8 out of 10 games, but for those that do, I think this is going to be really solid. That's just my opinion from what I've seen so far. I don't think the game's going to be bad. I don't think it's going to be underwhelming, but I also don't think it's going to be a masterpiece by any means. I'm just really keen to have an open world Star Wars game that has a setting that I'm really interested in, and all I want is for the game to be solid. That's it. So I think there's a lot here for everyone. There's so many gameplay features here, there's so many different ways to play the game, that I think if people just give this game more of a chance than they are, even though they haven't actually played it yet, then you might actually find that this is going to be a really solid Star Wars game. I'm obviously not telling you to pre-order it. Don't do that. You just shouldn't pre-order games in general unless you're absolutely certain that you're going to play the absolute crap out of it. But after watching so much of this gameplay, I've had a lot of this footage for almost a week now, and I can safely say that I am very excited for this game. I cannot wait. It comes out in a month, and I can tell that I'm just going to spend hours immersing myself in this Star Wars game, in the Star Wars universe, and I'm going to absolutely love learning more about the criminal underworld. So let me know in the comments down below whether you're excited or not. Has your mind sort of changed after seeing more of the gameplay that people got to experience in LA at this launch event? Let me know in the comments down below. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe for more Star Wars Outlaws videos. Become a member today if you want to support me in another way. You'll get early access to videos and live streams. So thank you so much for watching this, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!